Hello everybody and welcome back to another Kings of War Battle Report. I'm Visibly Riley, and this week we have Elves versus the Forces of Nature in a 2300 point game of Push. Now before I begin, you might hear some background noise. It's unfortunate, but I have to record this at a different time of day, and I live under the noisiest motherfuckers on the planet. So yeah, moving on, let's talk about my opponent's army. It opens with a horde of air elementals with the Hammer of Measured Force, 2 hordes of earth elementals, a horde of fire elementals, a regiment of 4 shamblers, a tree herder, a greater earth elemental, a beast of nature with 7 attacks, noxious mist and wings upgrade, a pegasus, 2 unicorns, both of whom have lightning bolt 5 as an upgrade, both have wings, and then one has the conjurer staff, the other has the boomstick, and finally a glade walker druid with surge 8 upgrade. My thoughts on this army are, well, it's very elite. With only 12 drops at 2300, that's a little rough, but it is 20 unit strength, so it's a little on the low side, but not too low. Otherwise, I think it's really good, or a lot of things I like. The Air Elemental Horde, I think that this is a slept-on unit. I really like it. It's speed 10, nimble, hits on a 3+, and then flies, of course. So it's a shambler, right? Any shambler that flies is really good, and I really like that Air Elemental Horde, especially with the Hammer of Measured Force. It's not always going to be the best upgrade, right? Or it's not always going to work or help you, but because they're speed 10 and have flight, they can ignore a lot of those defense 3, defense 2 units that people try to jam you with and just fly over them and go somewhere else. So I really like the hammer on that unit. I think it's pretty much an auto include if you're going to run the air elementals. The only thing in the list that I stare at and go, is the Noxious Mist upgrade on the Beast of Nature. I just think those points could be better spent elsewhere, like on the Tree Herder, right? I think Noxious Mist is 15 points or 20 points as an upgrade, and I'd prefer to just have any other magic item on the Tree Herder in that price range, right? Like having Han's Sanguinary Scripture and then a 5-pointer somewhere, or going for the full Aegis of the Elohi, or again the plus speed. So yeah, otherwise I think this is a really nice list. It really synergizes well. It only has the 2 surgers, but honestly you just don't need that much surge even when you're running a shambling army, right? So anyway, let's move forward. Next up are my elves. We open with 2 hordes of Palace Guard, one of whom has the Brew of Strength, the other the Chant of Hate. Then we have 2 regiments of Palace Guard, 4 troops of Kindred Archers, a horde of Draken Riders with the Potion of the Caterpillar, a Tree Herder with Brew of Haste, 2 Elven Archmages, both of whom have Lightning Bolt 5, and then one has a horse and the boomstick, and the other the Inspiring Talisman. And finally, an Elven King with a full menagerie of Horse, Shardblade, and Saber-Tooth Hunting Cat, along with the Blade of the Beast Slayer. So the idea with this army, I've been sort of running it through my head for a while now, just because Palace Guard are so good, and this list is pretty much everything that I look at when I look at Twilightkin, and I can't run. So it has the Draken Riders, it has the Palace Guard Hordes, it has the Archmages, and it has the Tree Herder. I think that those are the power units that exist in Elves that don't exist in Twilightkin. There's also the Dragon, but you know, you kind of have to choose between running a Tree Herder or a Dragon, in my opinion. So yeah, this is just all the other elf stuff, I guess. I do think it's a pretty interesting army. The Palace Guard Hordes are very powerful. Kindred Archer troops are really good, even if they are not very good at ranged. Honestly, I heard a suggestion that someone, I can't remember what podcast it was or who said it, but yeah, just rename them as Levy. They're listed in the book that elves have a lot of levy, and I was listening to the Lake Swap podcast about Basileia recently, and one of the authors on that was talking about how Basileia is unique because their men-at-arms are professional soldiers, and I'm like, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. The elves, they have a professional army, but not a lot of it. So if you make the Kindred Archers, because they live for so long, into levy, it makes a little bit more sense with their stat block. And I think the only problem with Elven Archers is a naming convention problem. It's a lore problem, right? So anyway, the rest of it's really good. I love Elven Archmages. I know there was a post a while back on either Fanatics or the Elf Facebook subgroup that was asking, why would you ever bring an Archmage? And the answer is because they're amazing. The Lightning Bolt is a great spell, which they can bring a lot of, and it has elite. And then they can also run the heal. I don't think the heal quite has the targets in elf list to really be that good, but in a Sylvankin list, the Elven Archmage with heal is actually really good in my opinion. So anyway, enough about that. It is a very elite army, it has okay unit strength, but let's move on to the scenario. So push is an interesting one. I kind of like it because it's not a fully dynamic scenario in that you're not scoring every turn, but it is dynamic in the way that you're moving tokens around every turn. So the game, the positioning matters a lot more, right? Versus this roll for turn 7, win the game, right? So you roll off a d3 for how many loot tokens you're going to have, or loot counters you're going to have, and you put them in your setup area, or you can put them on units. You almost always put them on a unit. Then you roll off for who's going to place that first, and you take it in turns. Now, at the end of the game, you will, there's also one in the exact center. At the end of the game, if your unit is entirely on your opponent's side of the field, which is different from a lot of version 3 scenarios that just say mostly, right? You count where the unit is, where most of the frontage of that unit is. But in this case, you have to be entirely on your opponent's side, and then each loot counter is worth 2 victory points. Otherwise, they're worth 1. So in this one, we played it the way that most tournaments I've gone to that run loot scenarios do, where you don't roll a d3, you just get a set number. That way every game is the same, right? So you don't have, you know, weird happenstance. But so we played with 3 each. We also messed up a little bit, and I just deployed mine first because I didn't remember if you had to roll off to see, or if the person who deployed their army first had to do it, so I just deployed one first, but not that big of a deal. The last thing to keep in mind are loot counters have special rules, meaning that you cannot be surged while you're holding a loot counter, you cannot be wind blasted, and then you are speed 5 and lose nimble and flight. So just keep those in mind during the game. And here we go with the terrain. First off, we have the 2 Height 9 forests. You might notice that my opponent's regular terrain is back. That is due to not having... some of the stuff I've ordered is taking a while. The United States Postal Service is a bit of a nightmare right now. So yeah, some of the stuff isn't here, and I just don't have the hills done, or the forest done, or the tree stands done. So we went with this. So anyway, we have 2 Height 9 forests, followed by 2 Height 1 difficult terrain pieces. Then we have 2 Height 3 hills. We actually have a 3rd Height 3 hill that I just forgot to mark. So yeah, there's actually 3 hills, obviously. Then we have 3 Height 2 walls, followed by 2 Height 7 impassable. And when you're looking at this table, a thing to consider is what side of the table would you actually want? Do you want that side, or do you want this side? In my opinion, I wanted this side because this side gives you 2 hills. I did not set up the train this time. The person who brings the train tends to set it up. But on this side, you get 2 hills, and then you also get this forest, right? And this forest is actually a lot better, in my opinion, than this one for tanking in. So I didn't want my opponent's Force of Nature just to have units that could hide in the forest and have a cover against my shooting, and then be able to walk over to the loot counter, since the loot counter was deployed on this side of that house. So yeah, this is the side that I would want, but other people could want the other one. I think the table is interesting in terms of its fire lanes. So if we look at, again, this close side, these are the 3 firing lanes on the table, and the center one is pretty much almost entirely occluded by this house, unless you're fast enough to get into these small areas. But you're going to have to choose one of the sides if you're going to deploy artillery, or like a really heavy shooting army like the Empire Dust list I ran in the last battle report. If I was running that list, I'd probably choose this side because you can just set up in this wood, and then you can see 2/3 of the table then. But anyway, so it's just a choice on what sort of army you're running. I'm running this one, so I want that side. And here we go with the deployment, starting with the Force of Nature on the left as I would see it. We have the 4 Shambler Regiment. It is already scouted, vanguarded, that's what it's called. No, scouting, it's scouting now. So it's already scouted forward. Then we have the Fire Elemental Horde, the first Earth Elemental Horde. And that Earth Elemental Horde you can see here is carrying all 3 loot tokens, pretty standard practice. Then we have a Unicorn with Flight, Lightning Bolt 5, and Conjurer's Staff. Keep in mind that unicorns also come with heal 5, so they're pretty decent, and they're chilling out right there. Then to the right of that, we actually in front of that, we have the Tree Herder, and again, we have already scouted forward. To the right of that, we have the second Earth Elemental Horde, we have the second Unicorn with Flight, Lightning Bolt 5, and the Boomstick, and then we have the Greater Earth Elemental in front of it. And finally, we have this Air Elemental Horde with the Hammer of Measured Force, and a Beast of Nature with Wings, 7 attacks, and Noxious Mist upgrade. So Noxious Mist is a breath attack, in case you're wondering. Or not a breath attack, those don't exist anymore, but you get the idea. I love these models. My opponent has had them painted for quite some time. They're very lovely. Mirsha makes great models. I really like their sculpts. And when I looked at this, he's been trying to, for I think years at this point, run these models as something, or at least more than a year. And it's like, well, before, you ally in Alohi hordes, but now they don't exist, so you can't do that. And just been trying to figure it out. I think they work really well as air elementals. I really like it. The only problem the only problem I have with it is if you're going to run this model as a Beast of Nature and these as air elementals, I think it's a little confusing. I would prefer to see this as a greater air elemental. It is also on a 50 still. It's not a Titan, and I think it's a great monster. It's probably not as good as a Beast of Nature, but if you're gonna run this model next to him, personally, I would use this as an air elemental just to sell the idea better. And again, when you're choosing models, especially in a game like Kings of War that allows you to pretty much do whatever you want, it's important that when you're theming things, you make them very obvious to your opponent. So when you point out that these are air elementals, well, the giant bird person is obviously a bigger air elemental. So anyway, and lastly, I forgot to mark, I don't know if I forgot to mark it, but anyway, back here, barely visible, is that Gladewalker Druid with Surge 8, and again, it comes with Heal 4, so pretty good support here. Opposite the air elementals, or the birdmen, we have the first regiment, a Palace Guard, followed by my Elven King with Cat, Horse, Shard, and Blade of the Beastslayer. I love that. Then we have the first two Kindred Archer troops, followed by the Palace Guard Horde with Chant of Hate. You might notice that they look suspiciously like crossbowmen. Don't let that fool you. Those crossbows are for show, and they're just melee combatants. Honestly, it's just because, again, I still haven't put together what I'm going to do for this horde. Now, here's a question for all of you here. About half this army is, I would love to use the Mantic models, but I hate the Mantic Elves, I'm not gonna lie. I like what they're doing with the new League of Infamy stuff, and if that becomes boxes I can buy and not like Vanguard where it costs $7 for a Northern Dwarf, which is ridiculous, I'll probably invest in that. As I really like those models. But anyway, here's a question for you. I have a bunch of Elven armies, and about half this army is done in this style. So it has the Games Workshop elves, right? While the other half of the army is done in my Night Stalker style, or the Twilightkin, which is using these Privateer Press models. I have enough for both, and about 50% of both. Now, would you prefer that I run them, that I get the paint up the rest of my Everblight models, my Hordes models, and use them as elves, or do you think I should stick with the Games Workshop? So just let me know. It doesn't really matter, just thought it would be interesting, and I've been thinking about it, obviously. And off here to the right of that, we have the second Archmage down here with Lightning Bolt 5 and Inspiring Talisman. Then we have the third Kindred Archer Troop, followed by the second Palace Guard Horde with Brew of Strength. Again, they're archers, but don't let that fool you. And then we have the Dragon Rider Horde with Potion of the Caterpillar. And off here, yeah, my Tree Herder with Brew of Haste has already advanced deployed. And finally, the final Palace Guard Regiment and a Kindred Archer Troop in front of it. So that's it for deployment. Let's just go into turn one. So turn one, the Elves win the roll-off, and real quick, I would like to talk about a deployment thing I was doing, which is, you can't really see it here because I've already advanced, but if we pretend this is your table, and then that is the 12-inch line, I actually deployed my entire army at the 10-inch line, and my reasoning for it is that Elves are pretty quick. I get essentially plus 2 speed over a regular army, so I decided to leverage that for turn one by deploying 2 inches backwards, because it messes up with shooting a little bit, and on top of it, it lets me deploy this Tree Herder anywhere in my front line. I can deploy it anywhere. I don't have to think about it, and I can just hold it for last since I have more drops than my opponent does. Now, the reasoning for that is because the Tree Herder is speed 7 with the Brew of Haste, so you scout forward 14 inches and you can turn one charge. So if either of these unicorns deploy forward, or this Gladewalker, or I don't know, anything on its own that I think probably I can take in 2 rounds of combat and won't be supported by anything, yeah, I'll just send the Tree Herder into it if I win turn one. So that was the idea. Now my opponent is canny and realized I was going to do that. But it did give some small fruit, which is that these flying units were actually deployed slightly back to make it so I couldn't do that. So these guys are also slightly, or at the 10-inch line, I think. So they're slightly under due to it's not quite 12 inches, right? 12 inches a little bit greater than the deployment. But anyway, so it did force these guys back a little bit, which is actually kind of nice for me because this is my weak flank, right? So anyway, that's the idea. Speaking of movement, I move all of these units forward a little bit. I make one mistake here, which I'll explain in a second. But starting on the left, I don't really move the tree herder after my scout forward. I just sort of stayed put. I could charge the... I don't think I can charge them. Maybe I can. But yeah, no, I definitely can. I can charge any of these units in the front, but I'll just get surged, flank charged, or reared, or any of those things. I'm like, yeah, it's not worth it. The tree herder can't handle that, especially because these are fire elementals, not water elementals. I would expect them to be water, because I think they're better probably in more circumstances than a fire horde, but I'd probably actually swap out one of the earth for a fire or for a water just to get one. You would get 1/1/1. You would have all of them, right? You would be full Captain Planet, but I also think it'd be a little bit better. But it's obviously harder to use than Earth Elementals, so I see why. So anyway, I don't move this guy forward. I move the Draken Horde into the woods. So they are 50% in the forest just to protect them from Lightning Bolt, because again, my opponent has Lightning Bolt 13, and that is quite a bit, and the Draken Horde is probably the target you want to go for with that. At least it's the one I would, because I only have Radiance of Life for healing. So you fire that in there. If you get a good first turn, you can fire turn 2 into it, and if you don't, then you can start peppering into these smaller troops of archers, but this is now weakened. So yeah, I just put them into cover to make sure they get that -1. Then I rotate the rest of the left line around that. So I place the Palace Guard behind them. They are just fast enough with where, I think I actually adjust this after the picture, but I place them to be just fast enough that their back corner can move 6 and get past the Draken Horde so I can advance into the forest as well. I move these guys as far as I can, and then I try to get in the center all these units with guns to be able to shoot. So especially this horse one, because I want to fire. I actually wanted to fire this unicorn, but because I deployed 2 inches back, yeah, I've also stopped my turn 1 shooting. So I might have actually been better for me to just abdicate turn 1 and allow my opponent to come to me because I deployed 2 inches under. But again, I'm messing around with that strategy rather than it's a refined idea. And on the right, I do move this Horde of Palace Guard onto the hill just to make sure that they have Thunderous Charge. I doubt my opponent will run into the center, but now they can't, right? So if they do that, they'll get absolutely wrecked. I mean, that's a Horde of Palace Guard with Elite and Vicious with Crush 1, Thunder 1. Don't deal with that. Now, the mistake I made this turn is I moved these Palace Guard forward. They were deployed over here, and when I move them, I realized that I haven't protected this right flank very well, so I moved the King over there. But then I didn't readjust this unit, and it's a minor thing, but it still could pay dividends because the King can't take either of these units in combat, especially due to this being a surgible unit, right? So all they have to do is surge that into me, and with a Beast of Nature, they'll probably kill the King or at least waver it on average. So I really should have had this unit facing off this way. So that's my one mistake, or at least that I see, and let's move into shooting. So with shooting, I just fire the entire hill. I fire almost everything. I fire this unit of archers fires into this one unicorn because this is the only unit that can reach it. So I fire off, I do 1 wound, and then everything else fires into the tree herder. I manage 1 wound there, and then this guy fires off, and we'll see it in a second. Yeah, that's a 5. So the druid, or not the druid, the Archmage with Lightning Bolt 5 on 5's a hit and 5's a wound manages 4 wounds. And I'm like, yeah, no, that's average, obviously. And even better with the end of turn shot. End of turn shot is this. So I end up getting a waiver here, so I just roll a hot 11, and the dice are off to the races, I guess. So we move into turn 1 of Forces of Nature. So starting on the left, you can see my opponent is trying to block these charges up a little bit, because this unit is very important, as it obviously has all 3 of the loot counters. The tree herder also decides that, yeah, let's not mess with the Palace Guard, and just turns this way to help protect as well. If I think the tree herder had gone this way, it allows me to really go hard with these units and not have to worry as much. So you know, I'm not glad about this, but my opponent made the correct decision, I think. And over here with the air elementals, they take to the hill to make sure that they have optimum charges. Again, these Palace Guard can't see them, so it allows these guys to get a little bit closer than I would want them to be, while these guys just hang back and get ready for charges. Now with shooting, we've got Lightning Bolt 8 Wizard. Or actually, let's roll him back. Yeah, and because this guy was wavered, just walks backwards to get out of range. So the Lightning Bolt 8 Unicorn fires off into my king. Actually hits him 7 times, but only manages 1 wound. So yeah, not that big of a deal. Although Lightning Bolt is scary for this king, so I might in the future iterations of this list play it a little bit more pensively. Turn 1. And here we go with an end of turn shot, and I wanted to talk about this just a little bit because it's a very basic strategy, but it bears, you know, bear it in mind when you're doing it. So first off, on the left, before we get to that, my opponent has blocked my ability to double charge with my Tree Herder and Draken Horde into this Earth Elemental Horde. And that is because the Tree Herder has to adjust to the left side, these guys have to adjust to the right. They can land in there, but then this is less than 2 inches, right? So 2 inches greater. This space is less than 2 inches, and since, you know, 50 millimeters is 1.98 inches, I believe. No, it's 1.96, right? It's one of the two. I think it's 1.98. But anyway, it's slightly under 2 inches. So I can't actually fit in there with the Tree Herder and have the Draken Horde, and just because of where this unit has gone. And then they have also made it so the Dragons cannot charge in on these Fire Elementals, which they might do otherwise, because I could, if they had set it up so I could charge it, I would charge there and send the Tree Herder here and just send nothing here. It doesn't matter. But anyway, that's all blocked up. Now, the thing I want to talk about is very simple, and it's called a pincer maneuver. So with this, you have your center line, right? So if this, again, is the table, just because it's a little easier, you've got your center line here, and then you have your flankers here and here. Now, with my entire army, you will send your center line forward, right? And then as I get into charge range, you back up with it, and then your side units can run around while my army engages, right? So a mistake would be to push my army forward into the center of the field right now after this center, because then these flanks will just come around and wreck me pretty hard. So yeah, it's a simple maneuver, but it bears talking about, I guess. And that's about it, so let's move into turn 2. So turn 2 for the Elves, I do, like I said, and don't engage. I just hold back. I do have some units that can charge, but not too many, because like this unit cannot charge, it's out of range, because you can set that up. This unit would have to drop the loot tokens to charge, which is fine. I could definitely get it in there, but I decide at the end of the day, maybe they are out of charge range, but either way I decide I don't want to send a Horde up here just to try to solo this stuff with the air elementals being able to, I think, be able to just charge them in the flank. And even if I do kill and adjust, they can charge me in the front along with this and, you know, unicorn and all that stuff. So yeah, it's just not worth it. So I just hang back a little bit. I adjust the placement of this unit, feeling a little dumb about it, and then run with my king. Now I do make another mistake here, which is if this is that Palace Guard Horde, right? So they're facing this way, and then I've got my king down here. When I move in, I place it flush, right? So this is the 25 mil side. So when I do that is a mistake. You don't want to do that. So you get your Palace Guard Horde, and what you want to do is run with your king and then place it like this, right? So this is the front up here, because when you nimble to readjust, you will end up not flush, but you will have just enough room that when you do your individual pivot the next turn, you can go wherever you want. So this is a mistake, is my point. And then off here to the left, I think we get, just a clearer picture of what's going on. That's good. And off here to the left, we have both the wizards. This wizard is actually facing this way, but there's a random elf just on the very back of the base, so I can't turn it, but it doesn't matter too much. I don't have ensnare or anything, but technically, yeah, it's facing that way. So we fire off all our lightning bolt into the air elementals. We do 7 damage, which is pretty good. I'll definitely take it. It's still a 10 to kill it twice. I'm not really looking at that, but I need to get some damage onto them because I'm hoping to one-shot them on my next round, or the round after. And here we go with an end of turn shot, so we can just talk about some of the movement real quick. Off here on the left, I will say, before I start explaining something on this board is another mistake I've made. See if you can spot it before I talk about it on my opponent's turn. So off here on the left, I have decided to block the Draken Rider charge, and the idea was to... so I moved this unit forward just past them to block up this stuff, and then I put the Tree Herder and some archers, right? Now, I do make a minor mistake. This is not what I was talking about before, and this is not like I messed up, but I just couldn't see my opponent's Pegasus. I didn't keep track of it, and I couldn't see it at that time. And so it can, after the Titan here, the Greater Earth Elemental moves, it can charge into the Draken Riders, which is bad for me. And I could have just made it so, again, there was not a 50 mil space between the archers and the Tree Herder. So I could have just made it impossible. But in the end, I don't, so they have a free charge there. But let's move on to my... And yes, I do not kill the Air Elementals. I do not roll that 10 twice. And we move into turn 2 for the Force of Nature. So turn 2 Forces of Nature. Off here on the left, we've got the Fire Elementals deciding to charge into the Palace Guard Regiment, along with the Shamblers and Tree Herder charging into my Tree Herder. Originally, my opponent wanted to send the Fire Elementals and the Tree Herder into the Tree Herder because that's a lot of damage, but they needed something to block up those Palace Guard, and the Shamblers could not charge here without blocking the Fire Elemental charge. So they have to do it like this instead, and I was out of charge range of the Earth Elementals, so with the Tree Herder, I'm just out of 10. So that's the idea. The Unicorn moves forward just to get some healing onto the Tree Herder, or maybe a Lightning Bolt. I'm not sure which they want to do just yet. And then in the center here, there's not a whole lot of extra movement, just some charges. So let's talk about those here. Yep, so we've got just showing up those charges. And then over here with the double charge into my archers. Now, my opponent hemmed and hawed about this for a while, and I think that this is the correct decision. The only other decision I think I see is sending just the Greater in to kill these archers, because the problem is my Palace Guard, both of them are in charge range of anything that's right here. So I've trapped my opponent in going, if you want to get rid of these archers, right, you need to send something. And if you don't get rid of these archers, I get to do the exact same thing on the next turn because of that house to my left and the fact that the flyers are going to be occupied for a little bit. So they have to do something about this, and my opponent just decides to send both of them in to make sure that they can kill them in one round, even though either of those units could kill it in one round pretty easily. This is just pure assurance, right? And then they can reform to better suit their needs. Over here we've got the Beast of Nature. I almost called it an Air Elemental right now. They got the Beast of Nature going into one of my archer troops. I don't particularly care about this. The archer troops are just there to do stuff like this, and because they are def 4, which doesn't matter here, but def 4 and 10-12 nerve, they can often tank a charge from a solo monster once, right? And then it takes 2 turns to kill them. So anytime your chaff gets 1 extra go, it's pretty good. And I would say that right now, when you're talking about terminology, what I'm doing here is a bit of tar pitting as opposed to, say, jamming, right? Which is what people tend to think of with troops, is that you run them forward, they die in 1 round, and so on and so forth. But against a Beast of Nature or anything over here, this is more of a tar pit, where I'm saying, I think I can get 2 rounds, right? I'm betting on it. So here is the mistake I made. So when I position these guys, I'm like, cool, I've done it perfectly. There's no way to flank charge the horde of Palace Guard over here, and I'm done. But what I really did was make it so this horde of air elementals can just fly forward, nimble pivot, and then hit into my flank. Their leader point is even in my flank. It's a complete mess, and all I had to do was adjust this unit ever so slightly, like this way, right? And I still could have protected the flank over here because I have the archers to double down with, and this is just a big mistake by me. And I was trying to play pretty cleanly in this game, so I don't mean, not cheat, but I mean more that I'm trying to not make any movement mistakes, and I've already noticed quite a few, and I noticed them in the game too. Obviously, after my opponent charged me, I was like, this is pretty obvious. But yeah, just a bad mistake by me. And off here to the left, we see the ends of combat. So I think my opponent healed their Tree Herder, and I think the rest of the heal tried to go on the Air Elementals. I'm not sure my opponent got that much heal onto the Air Elementals, but they did go for it. And then surged, obviously, into my flank. These guys, that's a lot of wounds for a horde of fire elementals. They've got 18 attacks on 4s and 2s with vicious and manage 11 wounds, which is pretty hot. But thankfully, because Palace Guard are 15-17, they are merely wavered. And then the Tree Herder ends up taking four wounds total, I want to say, between these two. It's not really that unexpected. The Tree Herder, the enemy Tree Herder, got a bit of a whiff, and then these guys are like, whatever. And off here in the center, yeah, they easily kill off those archers and then adjust here, as you can see, to face the front of these Palace Guard. That is because the other Palace Guard, which are slightly off frame to the right here, are being chaffed up by one of my opponent's Pegasi, or I guess the only Pegasus in the list. So just in the front fighting that, so no flanks there, while the Draken Horde can probably charge in and get a double. Maybe. We'll see. So my opponent had to make a decision, Drakens or Palace Guard, and Palace Guard are a wee bit better at doing damage if they can, especially off of a hill. So yeah, my opponent just goes for them instead. And speaking of that combat, my opponent does 1 wound to the Palace Guard, knocking off their Thunderous for charging down a hill, so that's unfortunate, but it's also pretty whatever. The Big Bird ends up going into my archers, and yeah, only manages 3 wounds, doesn't even waver them. And the big news is that these guys go into the flank of my Palace Guard. That's 36 attacks on 3s and then 4s, and only manage 7 wounds, which is horrific. That's very, very bad, and I'm not even wavered. So there are no consequences for me messing up in games, obviously, and my superior tactical acumen is about to play forward. So over here, we see the end of turn movements. Yeah, I don't think there's a whole lot else to talk about. So let's move into turn 3. So turn 3, Elves. First off, we have... Wait, what? What is this picture? I think it's probably just showing off. I think it's just showing off that I countercharged with these, but let's move forward a little bit. Yeah, so here we go. So he's a better shot of movement. I move both of my wizards onto the hill. This wizard actually decides to move back this way. I originally moved them onto the hill because I was going to double charge with my Draken Horde and Palace Guard Horde into the front here, but the Draken Horde could not fit along with this Horde. So instead, I end up going for this, right? But this Inspiring Talisman wizard moves to just help this area as well, since the Tree Herder might go down. So just getting some Inspire to the left, or my left. Otherwise, I just move my shooting. These guys pivot a little bit so they can shoot at anything they want, while the Horse Wizard takes to the hill so I can fire Lightning Bolt down, rain down that damage. Otherwise, let's talk about charges. So off here to the right, you can see, I go for the counter charge there. My Palace Guard regiment that lived, the Palace Guard regiment who lived, take down the Voldemort birds along with my Elven King. So the Elven King, I took the Blade of the Beastslayer. It doesn't work with the Duelist, obviously, but it makes this a really nice pinch hitter. I'm not going to always run something like this. It's a little expensive, but I was just trying it out. And in this case, yeah, I really like it because it's either 5 attacks on 2s with Elite with Crush 3, or it's 10 attacks on 2s with Elite and Crush 1, if I charge the things I would like to charge, right? So I'm a big fan of this. I will say if we roll, actually, I know what this picture is. No, I don't. So if we roll one picture back, the Elven King was back here, and when I said that flush messes you up, this is why. So because I'm flush, I can't turn like this, which is what I want to do, or like this, I guess, because through here, I can see this guy, and he's within 18 inches of me. So if I had better positioned that individual, I could have individual pivoted to see him, then nimble pivoted to get past my unit, gone this way, and then nimble pivoted again to hit him. But not possible in this case, so I have to go to the Air Elementals. So that is that, and then off here in the center, we have the Horde of Palace Guard going into this Horde of Earth Elementals. Now, I do have Crushing 2, so I've got 25 attacks on 3s and 4s with Elite. I'm hoping to be able to one-shot them, but, you know, I'm not counting on it particularly, but I think I can tank both these units fighting me this one round because I've protected my left side by going for a flank charge with this archer troop. So now this unit, there's no way to fit down this, and with where my Palace Guard end up, they're perfectly hidden in the shadow of this building from this unicorn. So that's the idea. is that I want to one round, but I don't need to. And then I send the tree herder into the tree herder, obviously. And the big news is that, yeah, these guys, they're perfectly placed. I didn't even see this until I realized that the Drakons could not combo charge, but they can just barely see the back corner of these fire elementals. And then their leader point is slightly off from my tree herder, right? So I could, again, draw a line. Or that's a bad one, but I could draw a line to them and see, and I'm height 4, so I see over all this stuff. And then, of course, I can fly. So I fly forward, pivot in the air, and bam, hit them. So yeah, I didn't see it. My opponent didn't see it, and we've got our second flying flank of the game off of what are we doing again? And here we go with an end of turn shot. Starting on the left, we have my Draken Horde. Yeah, they pretty easily finish off that that horde of fire elementals. I mean, it's 3s and 3s with elite and 36 attacks, so yeah, I'll take it. And then we have my tree herder and archers basically doing nothing to my opponent's tree herder. It looks like it's down to 4 wounds, so we did not roll particularly well. My strength guys do manage to kill off that horde of earth elementals. That feels really nice. Just one-shot them really quick. I one-shot the Pegasus here with the other Palace Guard horde. My Palace Guard regiment one-shots the air elementals along with my king. Now, they were wounded before, which is why I peppered them with some lightning bolt. But yeah, we kill them pretty easily. And unfortunately, these archers do not manage the 1 wound. I wanted to ground this guy, but this turn went very well. I did fire some lightning bolt into this. It doesn't, achieve anything. I don't get a waiver or anything. But yeah, really good turn, and it just shows, my opponent got a bit of bad luck right here, and actually it's pretty bad luck, but it's only bad luck with 1 unit. The rest of the game worked pretty well, or, within the confines of what you would expect for this side, right? But then, this sort of a list just puts out so much damage that when something like that happens, it's just boom, boom, right? So like this got a good turn, this got an average turn, and then these guys got an average turn, and these guys got, I think, a good turn. Either good or average turn, doesn't really matter. So and everything's gone now. So my opponent's now on the back foot. Let's see what they can do in Force of Nature turn 3. So Forces of Nature turn 3, with a bit of movement, basically only this Pegasus, or not Pegasus, but Unicorn, rolls back into the forest. Its leader point is outside the forest, so I'm not getting cover to shoot out. So that's the plan there, and then this guy just runs off. The air elementals are gone. One of the hordes of earth elementals is gone. It's only this greater left, and the greater is probably not long for this world, so the Surger is just going to run off and wait for a chance to come in and heal, right, since the Beast of Nature has 0 wounds on it. So that's that. Let's talk about charging. So charging on the left, my opponent decides that the Draken Horde cannot be left there. The Draken Horde, when they reformed, made sure that if this unit, this is not where it was to begin with, but if this unit turns and is then surged, the surge is in the front. It's impossible to get the flank, and then these guys cannot see me and cannot be... Actually, there's no surge anyway because the tree herder is disordered. But anyway, these guys can't charge me, these guys couldn't charge me, and then this would charge me in the front. So the Unicorn goes for that front charge, just sacrificing itself on the horde of Draken Riders. And then we have the horde of Earth Elementals going in the flank of this archer troop. They're not long for this world. Then the tree herder goes into my tree herder. You can see down here we've been doing a bit of healing. Just through Radiance of Life. And then the 4 Shamblers decide to try to finish off this regiment, heavily injured regiment of Palace Guard, which is a pretty good move, I think. And over here in the center, the Greater Earth Elemental goes into my horde of Palace Guard. They do have 4 loot tokens now because they picked up the center one. So, I mean, I'm not sure this is a good idea, but it's also, what else are you going to do, right? So I think... I don't know. It might have been better just to hold back a little bit and try to tempt me into charging because it's still so early in the game that there's no reason to just lose the unit, right? It sucks that the Earth Elementals, the Horde, got 1 shot, but I still don't think you just throw away the greater than. So anyway, and over here, the Beast of Nature, because it can fly, it can just pivot and charge into my wounded unit of Palace Guard. They only have 7 wounds on him though, and that thing only has 7 attacks. So looking at like 4 to 5 wounds ish, right? That's not great, but it's not the worst. I could survive that, right? And here we go. Yeah, just showing off the lightning bolt firing into my mage on the on top of the hill. It's lightning bolt 8. Hits with 2 and wounds with 2 and gets a 9 to waver, which is pretty insane. Again, Archmages, great unit. I'm not sure how people aren't seeing it, right? They have higher nerve, they have decent defense, they have great spells, and then they're cheap with elite spells, right? Like, they're not cheap, but they're elf cheap, right? So they're efficient, I guess I should say. They're a really good unit. So anyway, I get wavered, which is unfortunate. And here we go. Yeah, this giant bird, when it charges in there, it hits 7 out of 7, wounds 7 out of 7, and yeah, it just pops that regiment of Palace Guard pretty easily. And I'm like, well, that'll show those Palace Guard. So they're out of here. And I did... I'm not sure I made a mistake here. I mean, I did make a minor one, but I'm not sure it's a real mistake. So these Palace Guard could have, after they killed that Pegasus, they could have pivoted to see this guy, but I wouldn't have charged there anyway because I'm going after the Greater. So and I already have charges. Like, I've got this guy and I've got these archers. Now, moving into the center, yeah, the Greater actually does really well. I believe it has 12 attacks on 4s and 2s, manages 7 wounds, which is pretty good. And if this weren't a game where, you know, the Greater or the Horde of Earth Elementals had already been one-shot, that would be a great roll because, you know, send another Horde of Earth Elementals in there or, you know, something off here on the left and you can pretty easily kill this because I can't really remove wounds in this list, so they all stick if they're there. So anyway, that's pretty good. And off here on the left, far left, so we have the 4 Shamblers easily managing to kill off that very wounded regiment of Palace Guard. Then we have the Unicorn charging into the front of the Draconarders, doesn't even hit. It's got 3 attacks on 3s, but cannot manage a hit. We have the Horde of Earth Elementals here, managing to kill off my troop of archers pretty easily. And then this Tree Herder goes into my Tree Herder and does 3 wounds. So it's whatever. But the Draken Horde being able to do what they want, that's not great, but I don't have too many things to go into over here. Like, I can already charge them, so. And here's an end of turn shot. I guess the one thing it does do is let me charge into these 4 Shamblers if I want. So, I guess, options. And we move on to turn 4. So turn 4 for the Elves is a pretty simple one. Well, not a very simple one, but it's just a lot of charges. I don't have a lot of extra movement, although, again, I do move the Wavered Wizard off of the hill. So this Wizard of Waverly Place, this is the place. I'm hiding behind this troop of archers because the troop of archers on a hill are height 5, which makes it so this lightning bolt can't target me very easily. I'm not even sure it could. Maybe it could fly like over here, you know, where this stuff is, and then shoot me. But either way, pretty solid plan, I think. The other wizard just moves into this exact corner because I need the Palace Guard hordes to be inspired right now. The left does have an inspiring source in the Tree Herder already, and I'm not thinking it's long for this world, but I need these guys inspired more. I have 4 tokens, right, to my opponent's 3. So that's the plan. And then speaking of the Tree Herder, so I wanted to countercharge into the opponent Tree Herder or the opposing Tree Herder because it's just a good idea. But with how these Shamblers reformed after killing my Palace Guard, they can see me if I charge and it's a flank. So I'm like, nah, I'm not doing that. So instead I just disengage and then crab walk a little bit. So I'm an inch away from these guys just to make it so I can get a better inspire on the Draken Horde. And speaking of the Draken Horde, well, we'll talk about that in a second. So over here with the Draken Horde, I decided to charge into the Unicorn because, again, I can charge into the Unicorn, I can charge into the Earth Elementals, or I can charge into the Shamblers. I can charge any of these with Flight, but I decided in the end that I'm probably not able to kill these. I only have 18 attacks, right, on 3s and 3s with elite, or 3s and 4s with Elite on these, and they're dash 18 inspired. So I'm not looking forward to that. The Shamblers are likewise not a great proposition because it's 3s and 3s with Elite, but they're dash 14, while the Unicorn is only a 12-14 on 3s and 3s. So this is the easiest one, at least getting a waiver off, and again, I need to make sure that there's no Lightning Bolt and no heal going on. So I prioritize this. Instead, it's also the one that only allows the 4 Shamblers to get a flank charge, as opposed to, I think, the Earth Elementals had a flank or a rear if I went after them. So that's the plan. If I manage to kill it, I can always back up or do something. Either way, I force my opponent's tokens to come away from my Palace Guard. So that's the idea. In the center, yeah, this double Palace Guard charge. This is what I'm talking about with the Earth Elemental. It was pretty obvious that these guys could charge even if they killed this unit, and then I guess they could fall back 3. But that might not even have been in range, because I think I was like 9. I was either 9 or 10 inches away for this charge, so it's a pretty easy one. Anyway, so yeah, getting a flank, and then these guys have Thunderous right now, so that's 50 attacks on 3s and 4s with Elite and Vicious, and then 25 on 3s and 4s with Elite. Yeah. And over here, I charge the Elven King along with some archers into the Beast of Nature. The Elven King is what I'm going for the grounding, but my opponent smartly put the king in the Beast of Nature's flank, so I can't block its charge because I can still charge 20 inches, right? So that's pretty good. So instead, I just send some archers in the front here because then they'll just be the blocking unit. So that's the plan. And here we go with the end of turn shot. Starting on the left, my Dragon Horde, yeah, we one-shot that unicorn and just stay put. The tree, I didn't get any charges otherwise. In the center, both of my Palace Guard pretty easily kill off that Greater Earth Elemental. I did like 21 wounds to it or something crazy like that. Actually, I probably did even more than that. But anyway, so I kill it off, and then I reform these units, as you can see. So the first thing is I'm making this unicorn have a flank, not a rear, on this Palace Guard, because they only have 1 wound on them. I'm not really afraid, and I'm inspired. And then these Palace Guard give the unicorn its rear, and then because of where I place this wizard, there's no corner charge there, and then the space between this is less than 2 inches, right? So again, or less than 1.98 inches. So there's no way to charge in the rear. So you just can't charge this unit. It's a no-go. So that's the plan. And off here on the far right, I do manage a few wounds. I think I did 4 wounds with this. The archers don't do anything, which grounds Big Bird. Does not get a waver or a kill, but the grounded Big Bird is good enough because now they can charge archers or an Elven King. I don't really care which. And not sure what this picture's showing off, but anyway, let's move into turn 4 for the Force of Nature. So turn 4 Nature, we have both of the Shamblers and the Earth Elementals double charge the Draken Riders, and the Tree Herder on Herder fight continues with my opponent's Tree Herder charging me. I have Radiance down to 5 wounds now. My opponent's wizard or unicorn wizard decides to just inform me. He's like, yeah, I don't even know if this would charge anyway because it has Lightning Bolt 8. It only has 3 attacks, so if it, even on a rear charge, that's 9 attacks on 3s versus 8 attacks on 4s, and this makes it so Palace Guard don't charge you in return. So I was like, yeah, fair enough. This unit, has all the loot tokens, so I might have gone for it. But again, it's still the mid game right now. So yeah, get the lightning bolt going, and then try to get a late game charge and pick up all these tokens. Is probably the safest bet, or the most efficacious one at least. And lastly, we've got these guys right here. Just this. He's moving forward just to inspire the Big Bird because he realized on the last turn this was not inspired. So that's going to be the plan there. And here we're just showing out those combats. So here's the Draken fight. Here is Big Bird charging my archers. And let's move forward into the end of turn shot. I did forget to take a shooting shot. This unicorn did fire Lightning Bolt 8 into the Horde of Palace Guard with all the loot. I'm now up to 12 wounds, which is dangerous. But I have a second Horde of Palace Guard just to pass loot tokens onto, so I'm not particularly worried. In the center, you can see, or on the left, you can see this is pretty unfortunate. My opponent puts all that effort in, but these are 4+ to hit units, and they're a little random. So they only manage 7 wounds onto my Draken Riders. Don't even get a waver, so they're just disordered. And I'm like, ugh, that's bad. And then we have the Tree Herder on Herder fight. I'm up to 8 wounds now. It's not going to be a kill. My opponent rolls an 8 for the nerve, doesn't get me. And then off here on the right, Big Bird does manage to kill off one of my archer troops, or the archer troop he charged, and then goes to the side a little bit to try to help protect this wizard from my Elven King, and also get well within the Inspire, since it might have been a little outside Inspire, I think. Did go for a heal there, so healed a few of the wounds off. And that's going to be it, so let's move into turn 5. So turn 5 for the Elves, we don't have too much regular movement because, again, it's late game, we're all into charges now. First off, I do drop all the loot tokens with this unit of Palace Guard, and then this unit of Palace Guard just pivot onto them, so they're on 1 wound and have 4 loot tokens and are pretty well protected. I just turn them, as you can see, to make sure that the Beast of Nature and the Unicorn are in the front of the unit, just in case I fail horrifically at doing anything to those. So that's going to be that. I, again, put the wizard, the Horse Wizard back onto the hill to fire Lightning Bolt down, and then just move this one as, again, a backup inspiring source. The idea here is that I can fire, if I can fire this one first or this wizard first, doesn't matter. Actually, it's this one, it does matter in this case. So I fire this wizard first, see if I can do enough wounds to get an easy waiver here, and then I could fire the lightning bolt here, 8, just to try to kill this off, because it is inspiring Big Bird. So that's the plan. We'll see about that. And speaking of charges, we've got over here on the left, yeah, this is kind of a mess. First off, we have my tree herder disengages 1 inch, can easily see the rear of the 4 shamblers and gets an easy charge. So gets the rear there, which makes it so the Dragon Horde does not need to charge the shamblers, otherwise they would, and charges into the earth elementals, looking to do a bit of damage before dying. Then I have my Horde with Brew of Strength go into the flank of this this tree herder. I am hindered, but that's still 50 attacks on 4s, and 4s with elite. So, and this is a wounded tree herder. It doesn't have too many wounds on it, but it's like 3 or 4. So I'm looking at maybe killing that. And if I don't kill it, it still doesn't matter because this guy can't charge anything besides the wounded Palace Guard Horde. So we'll see. And off here, I do the exact same thing I did last time, only these archers charge down a hill, so they have Thunderous Charge. But yeah, the king here is just looking to get some wounds onto Disorder, and then the archers block it. And again, I can't charge this guy because he's hidden. I might have been able to charge him with the king if I wanted to, but I actually could, but I decided in the end, the archers, they only have 8 attacks on 5s and 4s, and I need to do that 1 wound, or things are not great. So I just decided, even though the Palace Guard Horde with all the loot tokens really don't die to even a 7 attack, 7 hit, 7 wound hit here, but I'm just like, yeah, there's no reason to risk that. I'll just kill this off, and then I still have another turn to try to kill this guy if I want. And here's the end of turn shot. So off here on the left, let's talk about that. First off, the 4 shambler, I do the Horde of Palace Guard. I do 21 wounds, so that's nuts on 50 attacks on 4s and 4s. But I do 21 wounds to it, easily kill it. Then I have this rear charge with 27 attacks, and yeah, I do 21 wounds to those 4 shamblers, and I'm like, yes, blackjack, please. Easily kill them. And then I charge, the charge from the Drakons is blunted a little bit because I'm only crush 1, so 3s and 5s with elite. I do some wounds, but not enough to really threaten that unit. And off here on the right, with the shooting, I do manage to waver the unicorn this time, which is great. So I fired this one. It was a 4 or a 5 to waver, and then I decided to fire this at the Inspire guy just to spread the damage out a little bit. And I managed a couple wounds, but I don't think I managed a waver there. But I do Disorder the Big Bird. I don't get a waiver again because this one is being healed, so these heals are working pretty well. So that's going to be it. Let's move into turn 5, Force of Nature. So again, there's not too much movement. We've got the Unicorn going deeper into the woods. Then we have this guy just hiding behind Big Bird, so there's no way my Elven King can come around and charge it. And that's going to be it for movement, so let's talk about the charges. Over here, we do have one thing, which is this guy tries to heal Big Bird, and 4 to 4 misses on that heal. So it's at full wounds right now. So we've got the Earth Elementals going into the Drakons. It's pretty obvious. They just go in the front there. And over here, Big Bird just goes into a second unit of archers, trying to just clean them all out. And here's the end of turn shot. Yeah, on the left here, we have the Earth Elementals easily one-shotting that Dragon Horde. It's not really a one-shot because it took them 2 turns, but whatever. I was already at 6 wounds due to the Radiance ticking, but they manage it, kill them off, and turn to face. As you can see, the Tree Herder, with how I left it, I think I just didn't... I think I just left my Tree Herder after I killed that. I'm like, I'm done rolling. So I should have been facing this way, but I think I forgot to move it. It doesn't matter too much to me. I cannot see the Earth Elementals, so whatever. And Although I don't think I could get a combo charge even if I could, so I'm not sure this matters. Actually, this is probably a little bit better now that I think about it, because now I can run past and then turn in to see over here, right? Because there's no way I'm going to be fitting a Palace Guard Horde and a Tree Herder into the front there. But anyway, and off here on the right, you can see the big bird. Yeah, it just goes into these archers and doesn't even waver them, because again, 10-12 is really good. It's great nerve ranking for a Def 4 unit that costs 90 points. It's just really good. And we move into turn 6. Turn 6 for the Elves. I do actually, down here with this Archmage this turn, walk onto the hill. My metal model doesn't want to be on the hill, so it's a little janky. But yeah, both of the wizards just stay up here on the hill. I am inspiring the unit of Palace Guard with all the loot, obviously. And then I move this Tree Herder. Yeah, like I said before, I can just walk this way and then and then I can stare into the flank just in case this goes horrifically wrong. So that's the plan with my movement. On to charges. Palace Guard Horde with strength charge into the front of these Earth Elementals. They have 7 wounds on them, so I've got 25 attacks on 4s and 4s with Elite. They are a dash 18 now, which I think is probably a little unnecessary. I think they should probably be 17 still. But anyway, dash 18, it's not the easiest break, but I think I can still pretty much do it, right? That's like, 6 to 8 wounds right there. So yeah, I'm not too worried. And over here, I send everything back into Big Bird. These guys, no Thunderous, but they're going to try to help. It is at 7 wounds now, and this is a 5-attack hero with that hits on 2s, wounds on 2s, and has a lead. So I'm looking forward to finally killing this thing off. And here we go with the end of turn shots, which is the Palace Guard here managed to kill off the Earth Elemental Horde. I don't move them because it's the end of the game, and I don't really care too much. Yeah, at the full end of game, all this lightning bolt goes into the unicorn, kills it off, and then I kill off the Beast of Nature as well. So we don't roll for a turn 7. My opponent only has this 1 unit. Actually, that's right. I only fired this lightning bolt into it. This lightning bolt went for a full table clear and wavered this guy. So yeah, he's wavered for that turn 6, where you can fall back, I guess. And I don't bother to move anything forward. So all my loot tokens are at least partially on my side of the board. I could have moved them forward and done that, but it doesn't matter in this setup. So a pretty big win for the Elves. I'm looking forward to messing around with this list a bit more in the future. It ends up being 7 tokens to 0 and an almost full table clear. So I'm very happy with it. Palace Guard are excellent. Archmages are excellent. Everything in this elf army is really good. But I hope you guys liked it, and if you have any comments, feel free to leave them below. And until next time, bye.